Hey everyone, and welcome to the Ohio State Buckeyes call-in show. We are glad that you're here with us. It is not the best call-in show we were hoping for. We were hoping for kind of a, maybe a victory to talk about, but we nonetheless are here for our first call-in show. Got my co-host Zack Gugenheim, host of the Big Ten Football Talk podcast, with me here. He is a Buckeye, even though he does a Big Ten podcast. He is for sure a Buckeye. There we go. Reveal it. There it is. Zack, how you doing tonight?
I'm still flying my Buckeye flag, man. Like I can understand, and there's a lot to talk about, but it was a great football game. Like just pure objectively, probably the best game of the year so far. It stinks that we were on the losing end of it. So, and I know there's a lot more to talk about it, but like if you just look at it in a vacuum, it was a great game. So, but we got to talk about the fact that it's not just in a vacuum, but there's a lot of context. So, that's my
Yeah,
guess is what we're going to be talking a lot about tonight is the context of this game
for
surrounding the
sure.
program.
For sure. We will take this whichever way you all want to take it. So if you are, you got some emotions you got to get off your chest, if you got some, fire you got to get off your chest, or maybe you just got an idea about the game and you want to run it by some other people and just talk Buckeyes for a little bit, we're going to be here for at least an hour. We'll go till 10, but if there's people calling in and stuff like that, we'll stick around and take your calls. So if you got something you want to talk about, the link is in the description. I'm going to put it here in the chat in just a second as well. But feel free, click that link, do all the stuff with setting up your mic and setting up your camera. If you want to have your camera on, you don't have to. Probably need to have your mic on so that way we can hear you. But other than that, Zack and I are just going to sit here and kind of talk about the game and what's going on until some of you guys call in. So, Zack, I mean, from a Buckeye fan perspective, we talked about it on the Big Ten podcast a little bit from like a Big Ten perspective, but from a Buckeye fan perspective, I mean, like, what was your emotion after the loss? Like, what was your thoughts? Like, was it just like, oh my, that's what I was like. I was like, oh my gosh, another one. Like, I can't believe this has happened again, especially the way that it did, in the fashion it did, similar to the way Georgia was. Like, what'd you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, it felt eerily similar to Georgia, Ohio State in 2022, just with, except we didn't even get to kick. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. I remember I was watching it with a bunch of people and I said, with 6 seconds left, I know it's probably a bad idea, but I would almost rather kick now than run another play. Because while I don't think our kicker can actually hit a 55 yarder, I'd rather try than have like time run out or take another sack or all that stuff. And as soon as he took off running, I was like, "No, Will. No, oh, no, Will."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was I mean, I picked Oregon to win. So I knew that that was gonna be a possibility. But I think the way it happened, and I think most people would agree, I think you would too, JR. I don't think the loss is the worst part about this, it's how they lost.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. We actually got some callers, so let's get to them really fast, Zach, and we'll continue to talk as we go with them. We got Mike coming in. Mike, how we doing?
How we doing, gentlemen? How you doing?
Hey,
Doing
Mike.
well. Doing well. If you don't know, Mike normally has his camera on, but Mike is the one that does the post game with me. So Mike is here in the chat. We appreciate you being on, Mike. What's your thoughts, man? You've had a little bit more time to marinate over the game. What you thinking?
Yeah, man. Since rewatching the game, watching the film breakdown, and I mean, obviously, I just want I'm gonna talk about the defensive side of the ball, and I kind of want to know you guys' take. When we had Kerry Coombs here, he was asked to run a one high defense, but when he was coaching here at Ohio State, he was coaching under quarters, things like that. Jim knows when he got here in 2022, he said that we like to be an attacking defense. We like to play offense, on defense and make offenses, go off of us, right? Well, we kind of seen that go away after 2022. And in 2023, now 2024, we've been seeing this new nose scheme. What do y'all think about like Ryan Day having Jim Knowles play a defense that he hasn't coached in or has done in 15 plus years? Because this isn't the defense that he ran at Duke. This isn't the defense that he ran at Oklahoma State. It's not the defense that we hired him for.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Mike. I have some thoughts. I'll give them briefly, and then I'll let Zach get to it. So I was on the OHIO podcast on Sunday night, and I truly believe one of the biggest issues is that uh, Jim Knowles has somebody on his staff who will not allow him to run the defense the way he wants to run it, and that's a Ryan Day, managing the staff issue. In my mind, is that Larry Johnson, wants to run with 4 down linemen. He doesn't want to get creative and have a jack position type guy out there, which if you don't know what the jack is, it's essentially just a 4th lineman that is also athletic enough to play linebacker, so that he can kind of swap back and forth between defensive line and linebacker. And I think that is hindering him. So, Jim Knowles, he's even reverted to a 4-3 a little bit in these running situations. And I think if you're going to hire a defensive coordinator, you need to let him come in and do what he thinks needs to be done and do the defense that he's been running. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe more meta, and I think this gets to the point that if it is Larry Johnson hindering or something else is going on, there's just a lack of creativity on defense. And so even the fact that Burke, who's getting burnt all game long, and like I've seen some people say, why not put in Jermaine Matthews? I think just an idea, safety help once, it wasn't there. And so like there is a
teams do that, Zach. I hear teams put safeties up at the top so that way if they throw the deep ball, it doesn't get completed. I've heard this happens in college football. I'm not sure.
Is this like the Loch Ness Monster? Where it's like but like it was astonishing. I thought the thing that differentiated Oregon from Ohio State on both sides of the ball was not physicality, but rather innovation. Like I thought Oregon was innovative and it wasn't like cutesy innovation. It was like, oh, we haven't thrown deep balls. Let's throw a deep ball. It's like, well, we know that's part of Oregon's DNA, but like, when are they going to do it? And they targeted Denzel Burke. I felt like Ohio State wasn't innovative at all. And it's just like, man, if you're going to be this mad scientist of a defensive coordinator, I'm not saying do what you did in 2022, where you just isolate a safety on Cornelius Johnson, but like do some sort of blitz package, do some sort of safety help, throw some different back end coverages. I'm not necessarily a big X's and O's guys, but I'm not sure I saw any of that, even as a casual in terms of X's and O's. Like, so that just felt so odd to me.
And here's my thing on that. If you're not going to have the safety help, you have to apply pressure to Dylan Gabriel, because we saw like his stat line in a clean pocket was almost perfect versus being pressured, right? And we didn't do that. And I feel like the whole 2022 the scheme, I like the scheme. I felt like we didn't have the Jimmies and Joes on the back end. But we were getting pressures. I mean, you talk about, a lot of people go back to the Team Up North game, but the run game, them guys was averaging barely, if 2 yards a carry before Donovan Edwards popped the 2 long runs, right? And I know everybody keeps saying, oh, Larry Johnson, and we're not using the jack or anything, but there's times where we've seen JTT stand up, right? And the Leo, right? It's kind of like a linebacker where you can also drop them back in coverage. How many times did we see our defensive linemen dropping back in coverage? So that, to me, there's no excuse why you can't still run the Jim Knowles defense, because you're still dropping guys back in coverage anyways.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That was my same thought when they started dropping Tyleek Williams back in coverage. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Like, I love Tyleek Williams. I think that Tyleek Williams is probably the best player on that defensive line. He does a lot of the dirty work, and he doesn't get the stats for it. But if you watch him, he's very aggressive and does a good job of getting into the backfield. But, like, why would you put him back in coverage? He's obviously better going at a guard and trying to get to the quarterback.
Facts, facts. But I just wanted to know you guys' thoughts on that, man, because I felt like getting away from the 2022 defense, like you said, it hasn't been a creative defense or a make you think type defense since. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, Jim Knowles not running his defense, and I mean, 2 times in a row, we're seeing a defensive coordinator not be able to run his defense, but. I appreciate
Sure.
you guys, man. Y'all keep doing great things, guys.
Yeah,
For
thanks,
sure.
Mike.
And hey, go check out Mike over at Best Damn Media, everybody. So you'll see him here after the game with me. You also see him over on Best Damn Media, the Fans Edge, all that stuff over there. Appreciate it, Mike. Have a good one. All right, we're gonna bring on our next caller. We got Caden the man with us. Caden, how we doing?
This is a first time caller. That's right, it is Caden the Man live on YouTube. How y'all gentlemen doing today?
Doing great, Caden. We're glad
Doing
to have
good,
you here.
Caden.
First time calling in. I love it.
Yeah, OH.
IO.
And I've got a lot to get off my chest.
Let's hear it.
First of all, Oregon, this isn't over. We will see you in Indianapolis, and this time it will not be friendly. And I will tell you, it will be more uglier than hell coming your way.
Oh, it better be, because if that's happening, I'm sure the defensive line plays much better. So we want that for sure.
Yes. Yes. Please.
And that's
please
a
give it to me.
guarantee, gentlemen. That is a guarantee.
That
And
the
first
defensive
of
line will
all,
play better.
of course, this is
Okay.
what they need to learn from their mistakes. They need to bring more physicality on defense.
Yeah.
Georgia
Agreed.
say we're absolute garbage. We're soft. I'm like, for the love of college football, Georgia, okay, we'll give you credit for being the most physical defense, but you forget Ohio State's a physical defense too. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah,
don't get me started about those Team Up North fans and Penn State fans.
Well,
Those
Georgia
fans,
doesn't have anything to say. They got pushed around by Kentucky, which we all know where Kentucky
Yeah.
gets their best players at, which is up here in Ohio. So
Yeah.
they got the Ohio boys at Kentucky pushing them around. I don't think they got too much to say.
Yeah.
and le-
They need to say more about their driving than anything else, those Georgia folks.
Yeah.
exactly. And as far as those Team Up North fans and Penn State fans going all over the internet talking like they're going to have an easy night, well, I'm going to tell you two are really 5-star dummies. Because you guys are not going to do crap when Ohio State comes into Happy Valley and whips y'all's rear ends. And when we come back to Columbus to whip that team up north. But, oh, and if anyone's listening from the Michigan University Hospital, I hope you got enough bedrooms for all those boys. Because after November 30th, it's going to be more uglier than they're going to expect it to be. And that's a guarantee, buddy boy.
I love all the guarantees, man.
This is great.
Oh, and as far as a national championship appearance, yes, we will be going to the national championship, and yes, we will be beating Georgia in that playoff contendership round. Well, actually, in the semifinal, the same semifinal they owe us a rematch for. Talking like you're the big dogs in the college football. No, you are not. Ohio State is, and Ohio State only is. Number one defense in the country, number one offense in the country. And let me remind you, Texas has not played any serious competition and no threats to their schedule. So if they play us, it's going to be downhill for Arch Manning and those morons down there in Austin.
I think
Jeez.
Ewers is back, so we better make it bad news for Ewers.
It'll be both.
Absolutely.
It'll be bad news for both of them because
There we
both
go.
of them will not be going home with a ring.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So you think that Georgia or Texas will win this upcoming matchup? What is it? Next week, I think it is.
It is next week, Georgia, Texas. I got this one's kind of a tough pick for me, but I feel like defense wins championships, and that's how I played defensive line outside linebacker. Like high school, and I'm like, defense wins championships. If Georgia's defense can come into Austin and bring it, that'd be surprising to me. But if Texas can show that they can play a tough defense like Georgia, I'll give them credit.
Yeah, 100%. I forget where that game is at. Do you remember?
It's in Austin.
Oh, it's in Austin? Okay, so yeah, Texas will have the advantage there for sure. So,
And as far as Alabama goes, y'all are garbage. Clemson is garbage, and you all are pieces of garbage. What? Because we all know, us Ohio State fans know, you're a bunch of 5-star dummies. And as far as the team up north is concerned, I will tell them this if they're listening to this radio channel or this YouTube channel. You can come on the YouTube channel and talk all the crap you want, but on November 30th, it will be hell coming to you, and it ain't going to be pretty. No, it's going to be uglier than you're ever going to know. It hits you like about a 355-pound dang freaking freight train coming down the lane. And as far as everybody from Penn State goes, I say, screw you, Penn State, because we don't get an absolute single effing reason why you guys are legit. Let's be honest. James Franklin is not undefeated against Ohio State. We own you. We own Georgia. We own Texas. Ole Miss, Alabama. We own anybody. And if anyone wants to come on here and say that against me, feel free to. Because guess what? When we play y'all and anyone who comes up to Columbus, you are all going to get handed a 55-point butt whipping you're not going to like, but you know what? It's going to be served to you in the style of the Skull and Gray whipping y'all's bottom butts. And that's the bottom line. Why? Because I said so. That's Kane the Man, for God darn sakes, because you all are 5-star dummies. Why?
Right.
Because we all know dang sure that we're going to go 12-1, go into the playoffs, beat Georgia if they can manage to hold it down, because clearly they need to show that their defense is the same unit. But clearly that's a bit of a problem on their end. And the Big 12, and to all my Big 12 fans listening to this channel, I'd rather be in the Big 12 than in the Big 10, because we have serious garbage and serious BS around this conference, because the referees seem like they're coming from Oregon and Michigan, which clearly they're so freaking biased. We need to shut them down, because we have no business being around a bunch of clowns. Oregon, y'all are a bunch of clowns. Michigan, you're a bunch of clowns. And Nebraska don't get me started about you, little boys. You guys are nothing but a bunch of cord-wearing clowns that can't do crap. And I'll be clear about that.
Caden, we're going to move on now, man. We appreciate you coming in here
appreciate
and sharing
it, man.
your thoughts.
Yeah.
Go Bucks, because Michigan sucks.
There we go. Go Bucks, man. All right. Thank you, Caden. Almost said Kevin.
Caden the man,
for coming in here and sharing your thoughts. We're going to bring Sean Garner now to come in here and share his thoughts. Sean, man, how we doing?
Oh, great to be on the inaugural episode of the Buckeye Call-In Show. About time we got one of these.
Yeah, man, we're glad to be here and doing it. We'll have to get Mark on at some point. You know, he's got all the other call-in shows, so he gets busy. But but we're glad you're here, Sean.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot on his plate here. So before I get started, I want to talk about something that kind of bugs me about in any of these situations. The way any fan base reacts to this is way too optimistic if they win this game, and way too pessimistic and down if they lose. I think we lose sense of reality here. Like, if they don't make that call on Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State probably walks off. And the tenor of the discussion and the tone is totally different after the game, even though not really just different. I mean, just a lot of results driven commentary coming out of this. And I think that's certainly in this situation, that's unwarranted, because nothing changed whether Ohio State wins or loses this game. It was honestly, for all intents and purposes, it was the outcome of this game is irrelevant. Everything for the Buckeye season is completely in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the only thing we should be judging is just the performance. And there,
I think that's an interesting place to start. What do you think about the game being irrelevant, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll say this. I felt the least pressure I've ever felt going into a big game in the regular season for Ohio State because I think to your point, Sean, I felt like this was a game where we could lose, and it's like it's really okay because all the goals are still in front of you. So now I think the thing that concerns me is definitely some of the performance around it, like the defense, like Denzel Burke. But I think to your point, like I think you make a great point. Like if offensive pass interference isn't called on Jeremiah Smith, we're actually very possibly talking about a walk-off field goal.
more
And
than
so
likely, I mean, it's almost
yeah.
certainly. Yeah.
So like I think that's a really good point to just give us perspective. So I think irrelevant. I might say irrelevance maybe too strong for me, but I think your point about this game really could have gone either way, and ultimately it doesn't impede anything in terms of our goals. You're absolutely right. Like I totally agree.
Yeah, and if they win, it doesn't change the warts that were revealed in the game at all. So, and honestly, looking back on this, I feel super optimistic. I said this last week. I think Ohio State is a decidedly better team. I think we've got better players across the board. But this was a very, very difficult, tough environment. I gave Oregon about a 40% chance to win this game last week. So it's not a surprise that they were able to pull out the victory in this. The things that cost us the game, though, in some ways I'm okay with it because I feel like they're kind of fluky. I don't think Denzel Burke's going to have that bad of a game ever again.
Well, I don't think that they're going to get an onside kick like that again.
Right. And I don't think Oregon's going to be as crisp and as precise necessarily that consistently all the time. I mean, they made basically no mistakes offensively in this game, and I've seen Oregon team, be a little fitty and starty and not crisp all the time. So, I mean, we tried to play them like just super honestly, be as basic as we could defensively, and it didn't work. And we're going to go back to the drawing board and probably be a little more exotic, throw a few wrinkles in next time. So,
I certainly hope so. I mean, the game plan of so much man coverage and stuff like that, and I think they blitz more than some people believe they do. PFF said they blitzed like 13, 12 times or something like that, which granted, I think Dylan Gabriel dropped back like 40 times, so it's not all that much, but still, like, that seems like more than some people think it was. So, I mean, I don't know if that's enough for anybody else with what's going on, but I mean, I think if anything, this is kind of I mean, obviously it's not a good thing, but for the defense to kind of wake up and realize you can't just sit in your base defense the entire time, and you can't just, play man coverage and leave your islands out in a corner against really good defenders, because I think Jim Knowles trusted his corners too much and probably trusted his defensive linemen too much, and probably is learning now, hey, I got to do a few more things than just, rush 4 and leave my guys out on islands, because they're running more Tampa than they are cover 2, cover 3, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like the biggest loss of the game was obviously Simmons. I mean, is it confirmed now that he's gone for the season? Has that been confirmed at all?
I think everybody's kind of taken the my volume up. I'm sorry, Troy. I'll turn it up for you. Yeah, I think everybody's kind of taken what Ryan Day said in the press conference, like it doesn't look good for the rest of the season, as he's probably out. I haven't seen anything to confirm it.
He mentioned again in an interview today. I saw on 11 Warriors that in his press conference, he said he's probably gone for the season. He also said Kaczmarek is going to be out for some time, and that Quinshawn will need the bye week to rest. So I didn't know that they got dinged up in this game. But
Kaczmarek, I thought, broke his collarbone in the game. I was assuming he was out for the year.
It's either collarbone or arm, one of the two. And,
oh wow, okay,
I think it was on that play where he dropped the ball.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, that would make sense. He did make kind of a nasty, awkward collision with the ground on that play. That's how those types of injuries occur a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, I thought Michalski played better than I was expecting coming in, because this was one area I heard all offseason, like that's an area where we're not super deep, is on at tackle. I mean, I think Josh Fryer had petitioned to move into guard. That's where he wanted to play. This is what I had heard in the spring, and the plan was to move him in there, but we just didn't have the bodies to supplement him. He's going to be a guard at the NFL for sure.
mm-hmm.
You're talking about Fryer?
Fryer, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I think Josh was one of those people that he would do whatever the team needed, but I think the staff realized, like you said, he's going to be a guard in the NFL. So if we can move him over to guard, but I mean, if we're being honest, there just wasn't really anybody in the portal that you could bring in. Which that's my thing with never liking to rely on the portal, is like, okay, you can rely on it, but who says the talent that is in there is going to be better than what you have? Obviously, Josh Fryer needs to be better as a tackle, but that doesn't mean there's somebody better than him in the portal.
No, he's actually played. Don't mean to disparage him at all. I'm sure he's played well.
He's not, he's not like an All-American or something like that, and that's for better or worse. That's what Buckeye fans expect, is that their players are talented enough to possibly be All-Americans. So, and I don't think it's disparaging him. I think he would probably say that he wasn't happy with part of his game and performance as well.
No, but Michalski coming in, and I thought he played admirably at tackle, but that's an area of serious concern. I would have said going in, if there's maybe one or two players on the team that were most indispensable, I would put Simmons. Like, I would say Simmons and JJ are probably the two most valuable players on this team. And I mean, he was playing so well to start the season. He was really living up to his billing coming in. So it was just such a bummer on so many levels to see him. And I knew it was probably he had a non-contact injury. Those are usually not good at all. Yeah. So, I mean, very, very unfortunate. But how do you guys feel about that left tackle spot going forward here, given how Michalski played?
Yeah.
What do you think, Zach?
I mean, I tweeted out, I think if there's anything that we should be concerned about, like, it's not the loss to Oregon, it's losing Simmons. Because I think to your point, I'm not sure we have a tackle that can truly replace him at even like 80% like capabilities. And it's amazing because Simmons, I mean, I was down on him. I think a lot of people were down on him, but he's really improved. I mean, he was getting some like borderline first round grades coming into this game. And so for him to go out now, and it's the reason why we were all frustrated with Justin Fry and his recruiting, because there's not a lot of depth. I agree with you though. I thought Michalski acquitted himself well in a tough spot, but there's also not a lot of film on him. And so I'm curious, like, as the weeks go by, I'm also curious who else they might put there.
Well, they were playing Sireveld a little bit there in fall camp. I don't think the reports on his performance there were very good, but yeah, they at least have looked at him there. And I looked up Michalski's recruiting rank. He was actually a fairly high recruit. He was like he was a 4-star, a number 2 guy, and we've seen just basically none of him in real game action up to this point. So I don't know. I mean, and he did play pretty well in this game. It does bear repeating that Oregon was without the edge rusher on that side for that game, so he was not necessarily going up against the top quality. that he'll probably see at Penn State in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So so that's So those are my thoughts going forward. I kind of really wish we had a game this week. I think this team needs. It would be really helpful to play like a Purdue or a Northwestern this week. They're just exercise. It sucks to stew on a loss like this for 2 whole weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And then to get Nebraska, like who I think might be, they've got a tough game this week, but I don't know. That's a tough defense to come out and play after you've been stewing for 2 weeks. So
yeah.
They've got some pretty good wide receivers. I mean, they're obviously not on Oregon's level, but there's some pretty big body wide receivers that if the DBs aren't careful, they're gonna snatch the ball away from them. So you got to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for letting me on, and go Bucks.
Yep,
Go
go
Bucks, Sean.
Bucks.
Appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah,
Have a good
thanks,
one.
man.
All right, very good. Hey, I'm gonna change up this really, really fast, and then we're gonna bring Jar of Happiness in here. Zach, you're gonna go away for just a second. I'm sorry, but I'll be right back.
I'm so sorry. Okay, it's fine.
All right, there I am. I'm gonna fill. Then I'm gonna bring. Sorry, everybody. I know this is probably lame to see during a live show, but it was bugging me the way it was before. That wasn't the way I anticipated it to be. And Jar of Happiness, we'll get you in here in just a second, I promise. And
I say, is the Jar of Happiness similar to the Antidote of Confidence?
You wish, Zach. If anybody doesn't know that, PJ Fleck has installed a Antidote of Confidence for his team, which is just absolutely hilarious.
We think it's Sprite.
Yeah, they were saying it looks like Sprite, so. Okay. All right, there we go. We'll bring Jar of Happiness in here now. All
that's
right.
so nice.
Jar of Happiness. How we doing tonight?
Pretty good, guys. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Yep.
What's going on?
Not much. How you feeling?
Better. I think that the sting of the loss is slowly starting to wear off. But I got some concerns going forward, gentlemen. I really do. And it's starting with this guy by the name of Jim Knowles, because in my eyes, he's starting to turn into big game Jim Knowles, if you understand what I mean. And I'm pretty sure that you've probably seen the meme that's been going around in all of our big games where he's been our defensive coordinator. He's given up, 1,897 yards and about 150 points. So coupling that information with what happened over this past weekend, I'm skeptical going forward.
Skeptical of the defense, skeptical of the whole team. Okay, the defense. All right, what specifically about the defense?
Why do we keep getting cooked?
Yep.
Why is it that when it's because Ryan Day likes to say it shouldn't come down to one play. How many games we've been in now where it's come down to one play? And our defense has not been able to step up and put an opponent away.
Yeah.
We have not been able to finish games. And it sucks that when we play the little sisters of the poor, we can blow them off of the field with no problem. But when it comes to these big games that actually matter, now I got to give grace with this Oregon game due to the fact that we're in our new playoff system, so we can actually afford a loss. Thank goodness.
Yep.
But it still doesn't sit well as a fan, because it's like, okay, we know we got a big game coming up and it's a chance that our defense may not hold up. So what are we going to do about this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
I mean,
question.
I think at the end of the day, number one thing is you got to do is you got to let him run his defense. It's hard to say give him another chance with that because it's not been great with the yards and stuff like that. I want to say somebody put information out there that like he hasn't allowed a punt in the last 3 top 5 games or something like that, or he hasn't
Yes,
forced a punt.
in the fourth quarter of all of our big games, no team has ever punted. They got the ball, they went down the field, they scored, and we did nothing about it. That's demoralizing. Like, come on, man. Like,
that's a telling statistic. I did not know that was. I did not know that was the statistic. And yeah, you're right. Like, that is an awful statistic as a defensive coordinator.
And then I gotta wonder, is he beefing with Larry Johnson? Is there something going on with them too? Like, are they just not meshing?
Yeah,
this scene has been something that's been going on for a while. Like, are they ever gonna mend this? Like,
that's the rumor, is that Larry Johnson wants to run his, defensive line room the way he wants to run it, and that, Jim Knowles wants to get a little bit more creative. I mean, there's all kinds of rumors that go on out there, so I wouldn't take it as gospel, but, it makes sense to me because a lot of things have changed on this defense once Jim Knowles got here, but I feel like the defensive line hasn't.
Yeah. Well, and that's ultimately, that's not just a Jim Knowles issue, that's a Ryan Day issue. Like, if you're the head coach.
Yeah, Mr. CEO. Yeah, that's what he wants to be now.
Yeah, like, your job is to lead your staff, and if there's an issue between staff, it's your job as the CEO of this team to make sure they work it out. And so, I have a concern about Jim Knowles, to your point, Jar of Happiness, but I think it goes back to Ryan Day and his management or mismanagement of that side of the ball.
I agree 100% because I don't think Dan Lanning would have this problem with his defense. I'm just using that as an example.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, these are my issues going forward in Buckeye fandom land. And we still have 6 major games coming up on our schedule. And, I was surprised with the AP ranking that came out yesterday because they're generally not as nice to Ohio State when we lose, regardless of who we lose to. Yep. I was expecting us to be below 5th, like around 8th or something. So for us to drop to 4th, that let me know that, okay, we might be able to lose a close one again and still somehow stay in the top 12 for the playoff. But of course, as Buckeye fans, getting to the playoff is one thing, but we still want to beat that team up north and win the conference too.
Yep.
Just can't just sit and be content with just, all right, well, we ain't getting none of our other goals, but we get to make it to the playoff. All right, that's some sort of consolation, but did you really accomplish all your goals at the end of the day?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I wrestle with the most is, like, we know that team up north cheated, right? So, I do feel like there is a level of, like, looking at that we need to do as fans and understanding that, like, Ryan Day and CJ Stroud were cheated for a couple years, if not 3 years. We have no idea what happened last year, but there's definitely the possibility that it happened. But at the same time, like, this is also Ohio State, where if that team up north cheats, like, you should be better. They don't recruit well. Like, we have a much better coaching staff. Like, at the end of the day, you should be able to figure these things out. So I struggle with kind of wrestling with that part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically all I had. I mean, I think it's for as much as I can't stand bye weeks, and it really seems like the bye weeks this season are just too close together, but I don't make the schedules. I'm just a fan. But I think
it's different with the way the year started, I think, because there's like 5 Saturdays in November or something like that. I listened to somebody explain it, but sorry, go ahead, Jar.
Oh, no. That was pretty much it. I think that they need this bye week because outside of the problems that we have on defense, which I really don't know how they're going to be able to fix, somebody get Chris Ash on the phone so he can start teaching these kids how to tackle again. But
yeah. No.
I got a pick for defensive coordinator if Jim Knowles moves on. You guys want to tell me what you think about it?
Who's that?
Listen, he's head coach right now. He's got a pretty good defense, but his offense is terrible. So
I know where you're going.
Somebody in. Brent Venables. Bring him in.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have no disagreements with that at all because he killed us at Clemson. I have no problems with that at all.
He'll steal signs for us. That's what we like.
Hey, it worked. I still think about that Skalski hit on Fields to this day. Hey, I will take that man as a defensive coordinator because I don't think his time in Oklahoma is going to be too much longer. You can't keep losing to Texas and thinking you're going to keep your job.
Exactly.
I thought you were going to go somewhere different with that. I thought you might go David Braun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he would be good, but I don't know. Has he ever done defensive coordinator at Big Ten? He's never done it at a Big Ten level.
Yeah, well, he was supposed to be the defensive coordinator at Northwestern, and then he became head coach.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if Venables would come this way. I'm pretty sure if the money's there, he'd do it.
Oh, I think he would too.
It's usually what it's about.
Yeah. All right, JR, you got anything else before we move on, man?
Nah, you guys go ahead. Thanks. I'm glad to be a part of the first call-in show. You'll be hearing from me again, especially if they keep acting this way. But
I love it.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, no problem. You guys have a good one.
Yep, you too. Yeah, can I make a point off of JR's thoughts about the defense?
Sure. Yep.
Something that's just really, if you think about who we played before Oregon, we had not faced a good quarterback and we really didn't face a good receiver. Like, I think Marshall had one really good receiver and that's it. We got to play Curtis Rourke. We got to play Drew Aller. We got to play Dylan Raiola, and we got to play some better receivers. We're going to find out real quick if they can fix this defense.
It's going to be a test. It's going to be a test for sure. All right, we got Jackson here with us to come on. Jackson is currently our last caller we have in the queue, so if anybody else is out there and you're like, I don't want to wait around for too long, go ahead and call in, and once Jackson's done, we'll bring you in here. Jackson, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you gents doing tonight? Congrats on the first ever episode of the Ohio State call-in show.
Hey, we're glad to be here. Yeah.
There we go. And I wanted to ask a question about Ryan Day. And this was a stat that I saw yesterday on Ats. And this is about his record versus top 5 teams. He's 2-6 against top 5 teams. 2 of those wins, one of them was against Notre Dame in 2022. And the other one was in the COVID season against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl. Are you worried a little bit about the top 5 record, or is it really nothing to worry about for the time being?
I'll be quick and then I'll let Zach comment. I'm more worried about the end of games. I don't really get so much caught up in like the top 5 stuff like that because we beat Notre Dame and then they lost to Marshall the next week. So, it's like, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, just go in and win the games you're supposed to win, and have good decision making in the big games. And unfortunately, we haven't always seen that in the big games. So, I just want to see good decision making and correcting that kind of stuff. Obviously, for bragging rights, I'd love more top 5 wins, but you know, the ultimate bragging right is winning the national championship. So, Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like the top 5 thing, it's used for narratives. So like, I think people right now want to push the narrative that Ryan Day can't win the big one. And I think there's some truth to that, but it's like the stuff with Kirby Smart.
He's better than Brian Kelly.
That's very true.
Brian Kelly won this weekend, so I can't even say too much about him.
But he's still up to USC.
Yeah, but that's regular season, not postseason.
That's true, Jackson.
That's a good point. But yeah, I think what I'm concerned about, not just end of game, but it's the same mistakes, like special teams miscues and defensive breakdowns, not being able to run the ball in key moments. You know, I think I saw a stat, 12 carries for 16 yards in the second half. Like, those are the things where you're like, you say you're going to fix them. And I feel like there's a lot of talk, but man, talk is cheap if you don't actually fix them.
True.
Yeah. Well, Jackson, you asked us a question about our head coach. Can I ask you a question about your head coach?
Absolutely.
What's the feeling for Kalen DeBoer down there? You know, he had the loss, and then you had the South Carolina. I mean, they won the game, so give him credit for that. But it's Alabama. You shouldn't be struggling like that, right? I mean, what's the thoughts of the fans?
Well, a lot of the fans, like some of them that clearly have not watched all of college football, they've all been having this attitude of Nick Saban wouldn't have done that. Nick Saban wouldn't have done this, which I knew that was coming in the offseason, which I was like, please do not give this attitude of Nick Saban wouldn't have done this. Nick Saban wouldn't have done that. I mean, I hate that attitude. It's like, I know that Saban won Cincinnati's, but even Saban made mistakes. I mean, did those like fans that were whining and crying about Kalen DeBoer forget about that? Like, my God, it's like, do they really want to go back to the Mike DeBoer years? Like, good grief! It's
That's a
like,
good call.
like that guy, Mike DeBoer, like he was out doing the mess around the back room, and the only reason why that he kept his job after 99 was because he got on a huge winning streak. That was it.
Yeah, that'll do it for you. That'll do it for you. Yeah, I think it's interesting what Kalen DeBoer is going to do at Alabama. I think that, he's obviously had his struggles, but we saw this at Washington last year, right? I mean, he played with his food with too many people or too many teams that he should have been playing with. And then in the big games, he came out, other than one team last year. In the big games, he came out and he coached a really good game and his players played really well.
True. And I think you're going to see Alabama win some more games. I don't think this year is a year where we're going to that's not happening. We're not a natty team. I don't even think we should be a playoff team with the way we're going. I mean, we just look disastrous. But I think Kalen DeBoer will do some great things at Tuscaloosa. And I think some of those fans that are like crying about him right now, they're going to forget all about it. One of the people in the chat was saying that a lot of people used to talk about Kirby Smart and his inability to win the big games. You don't hear about it now because Kirby was able to get it done. Saw it with Harbaugh at Michigan. And eventually you're going to be seeing Ryan Day win some huge games for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Like, I mean, we've seen them win some big games, but I think the game losing streak will end this year. And I think the Buckeyes can win a couple playoff games. Now, I don't know if they're going to be natty champs. I'm not going to lie, but I can tell you it's going to be a wild ride in the Big Ten.
That it is. The Big Ten is much better this year, even without the cheaters in it. Oh, did I just say that?
We can say that on this show, not on the Big Ten show.
Oh, yeah. I'm in Big Ten mode here where I say that and I get crucified. Here I get like, people in the chat. Woohoo, yeah, say it again.
Yeah. Zach, I'll tell you this, though. It is good meeting you, man. And JR, it's good to see you. But before I go, I like to tell everybody to tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Kroger every Monday night about the Ohio State call-in show on Ohio State at the Voice College Football from JR and Zach. And don't forget to tell the cashiers at Kroger about the magic that JR is not only creating in Ohio State at the Voice College Football, but on the Big Ten Huddle and the College Huddle. You're not going to want to miss it. And you're not going to want to miss the magic that Zach is creating on the Big Ten Football Talk podcast.
Appreciate it, Jackson.
That's
Thanks
awesome.
so much.
We appreciate it, Jackson. Have a good one, man.
Yep.
You
Good
too,
meeting you, Jackson.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, Zach, no more callers in the queue. So if anybody, I'll put the link in there one more time. If anybody wants to call in, we can take one or two more calls. I got to copy it and then put it in. But if not, then we'll just kind of go through some of y'all's comments. It looks like you guys are having good conversation that we can be a part of in the chat as well. So put the link in there if you want to call in. Feel free. If not, we'll go through some of the chat here. Let's start with that Bootzilla comment there. Zach, do we feel like, does Ryan Day have to win back-to-back national championships to get the monkey off his back, or do you think just one? Do you think a couple playoff wins will do it? What do you think he has to do to get this monkey off his back?
Well, I think Jackson hit the nail on the head that it starts with Michigan. So, like, I think even if they win a natty, the natty cures a lot of ills. But if he does it without beating Michigan, especially this Michigan team, like, I still think there's issues. But so honestly, I feel like he needs to do the trio of Michigan, Big Ten title, and national championship. Because the reality is you don't change perception overnight. You don't change it with one win. If you go through the 12-team playoff, you win your conference and you beat Michigan, you are showing a culture of change. You're showing an upward trend. And I think that's what has to happen, which is what Kirby did, right? Kirby didn't just, I don't think it was that he won 2 national championships, although that helped, but it was that he finally beat Alabama and he won a couple of big games. I thought that was big that they finally got the monkey off the back, that they beat Alabama in the national championship game. That's what I think really solidified it for them.
Yeah, and they're riding off that one win because he's like 1-6 or something like that with Alabama now. But nobody wants to bring that up because he won a national championship.
Yep.
So, all right, Zach, we got one other caller. We got Steven here with us. Let's bring Steven on. Steven, how we doing?
Hey, Steven.
Great. Hey, how you doing?
Doing good.
Doing well. What's on
Can
your
you
mind,
hear me?
man? Yes.
Yes.
And I got the TV on. Is that going to be a problem, or is it not going to make that echo back thing or whatever?
If you could turn it down, that would be helpful. It does cause some echo
Yeah.
for
Give me
people
one second.
listening. Okay, go ahead.
All right. There we go. I'm down.
All right.
So I had a
appreciate it.
couple of points I wanted to make. First off, I want to say, there's a lot. I was on the message boards a good bit, watching mostly, talking a little bit, but a lot of negativity on there about the Buckeyes. I don't think they're nearly as bad as people are saying.
Yeah.
Hold on, maybe I can turn you up just a little bit. I mean, the
Yeah,
defense.
you're right. There's more negativity than I think that is warranted at times, but that's Buckeye Nation, We're crazy.
Yeah, true. I mean, there was definitely a good bit out there today to be on it for sure. But another thing I want to say is I think Will Howard played an exceptional game. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only reason that he maybe didn't quite get us there at the end is I think his legs were just rubbery. If you watch, he fell down 2-3 times towards the end of the game for no apparent reason. I think he was just gassed. I mean, I think they put everything into it, and he just didn't have enough left in the tank to make it through.
Yeah, he fell down on that sack, and then he fell down when he was throwing that drag route to who was that? Was it JJ that he was throwing to?
Yeah.
That was so weird when he fell down on that one. I didn't understand.
Yeah, I just think his legs were rubbery. I think he was so jacked all game long that he just he just pushed his body beyond what it was able to do successfully. I hear a lot of people. Another point I want to bring up. I hear a lot of people calling for Ryan Day's job, Jim, the defensive coordinator's job, Knowles' job. I mean, I just think all that's just way premature. I mean, first off, I wouldn't have anybody. But who are you going to take other than Ryan Day? I mean, the man's been extremely successful. People say, he's not done well in the big games, whatever. But 3 of those games, or at least two of those games, we know that it was. You can say, yeah, we'll rise above it because we're Ohio State. But it's hard to beat a team that knows what you're running, before your players do sometimes.
Yep.
So I mean, I think that plays a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely Ryan Day is one of the better coaches in college football, if not one of the best coaches in college football. And moving on from him, it's going to be very, very difficult to find somebody that's just as good. I entertain the Jim Knowles conversation a little bit more, just because I do think there's more options than maybe a head coach out there. But I'm with you. I'm not firing Jim Knowles right after this game. I'm not sending him to the curb. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, no, I was just talking to, actually, ironically, a couple of Michigan podcasters about this, and you don't want to be not that Nebraska and Ohio State are the same caliber of program right now, but you don't want to become Nebraska after they fired Bo Pelini, right? You fire Bo Pelini, and what happens?
Yeah.
You get Mike Riley and Scott Frost, and Scott Frost was supposed to be like the the prodigal son coming home, and instead it was disaster. And I'm not saying that would happen at Ohio State necessarily, but like the grass is not always greener. And so like I don't like losing these games, but also like we're talking very differently if Ohio State's
Nobody
not
does.
recruiting well and Ohio State's going 8-4 every year. But like we're talking about a loss to maybe the best team in the country on their turf. Like I think I really agree with you.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it should be on the radar. I think I do have questions about Knowles though. But I wouldn't say he should be fired after this game. I think there's just questions.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, all I know is that before he showed up, our defense looked a lot worse than it does now.
It's so
Very true.
Oh, that
That
was
is very true.
Bryson Shaw at safety.
Yeah. Take your pick. There's any number of categories that you could get lost in.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
All right, Steven, what's your last thought? We're gonna move on. We got a couple more callers. So what's your last thought before we get you out of here?
no, that's it, guys. Pleasure talking to you. I'll make room for the next guy. Y'all have a wonderful night, and maybe I'll talk to you again.
Yeah.
Sounds
Thanks
good,
so much
Steven.
for
We
calling
appreciate
in.
you being on. Have a good night. All right. Thank you, Steven. Great call there. We're going to bring on Hummus Hero now, and then we got Doug after Hummus. So, Hummus, bringing you in. How you doing, Hummus?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
We're doing
well.
good. We're
Doing well.
Doing a little better. The sky didn't fall. It was a little cloudy, fittingly cloudy a couple days after the loss, but things move on. But I kind of wanted to continue talking about the Ryan Day thing. I don't want to, beat it to death here, but that's kind of what I wanted to call in and talk about.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
Let's do it.
So like I guess I'm a little bit older than you guys. Well, maybe a lot older than you, but I lived through the John Cooper era, and I'm not saying that Ryan Day is John Cooper 2.0 like a lot of people say. But at the same time, like if you're going to be realistic, Ryan Day has had some advantages that Cooper didn't have. He's been here in the era of the 4-team playoff. Like I was talking about it with my dad the other day. Like the reality is the 96 and 98 Ohio State teams, if they would have been afforded that second chance, there's a good possibility that at least one of those teams would have ended up winning the national title. And then our whole perception of John Cooper may have been different. You know what I mean? So, but I'm not talking about Cooper. So my point is that Ryan Day is afforded these multiple opportunities in each season. So like, I think we kind of got screwed in that Georgia game. Honestly, I've talked about it with Mark before, the officiating, and it just didn't seem right to me. But the reality is he had 2 opportunities that year to get in, and they backdoored into the playoff. And then still ultimately failed. And you can say it came down to a kick, had him in position, this and that. But I mean, he's had supremely talented rosters. And now you can't use the excuse of no coaching staff cohesion. I mean, like this coaching staff has been together. Like some of the things that we're seeing, I just don't think we should be seeing at this point. And I don't know if it's that he's too much of a buddy to everybody at the Woody. I mean, like, I know that you can't do like what Woody Hayes used to do with players in this day and age. I get that. But I mean, like he's all these other coaches' bosses. So like when people say, oh, is Jim Knowles not getting along with Larry John? Like that's Ryan Day's job. Like you have to put an end to that. If stuff like that's going on, I mean, like he needs to take control of the program. And especially like after he hired Chip Kelly, like everybody's saying, like now he's firmly in the position of just being the CEO, managing game time decisions. And I'll be honest, I don't see any difference this season. Like as evidence in that game, it just seems like the same old stuff, like, I don't know, but that's just my opinion. So I don't know what you guys think about that. If you've seen anything different in that game.
Not as much in the Oregon game. I do think that early on in the season against Iowa and Michigan State, we saw more rotation on the defensive line and some of that stuff we wanted to see. I think that we saw more, variety of defense. Now it was going from like a 4-2-5 to a 4-3, which isn't the most creative thing in the world, but they matched up with their competition against Iowa, and I mean they stopped Caleb Johnson, and Caleb Johnson wasn't able to run all over him. They got ran all over the past 2 or 3 years, the team up north being one of the major ones who did that, but other teams were doing it as well. And this game, they got passed all over. And, Jordan James did have some good runs, but he wasn't running, for 70 yards and stuff like that. So the differences I see are being very much so in the Oregon game are being outweighed by some things not changing as well. So I think you make a good point there. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, it's hard because I think we often see changes in the lesser games. And then when you get into these high pressure games, I was just thinking that the rotation, I'm like, when's the last time we've really rotated defensive linemen in a big game?
Mhm.
And I think that's actually been the knock on Larry Johnson, right? Is that why don't you rotate guys more in in these big games to keep your horses fresh, or to bring in different pass rushers? Like I don't know how many snaps Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson and Mitchell Melton played. I know they played a few, but I don't feel like I saw a ton there. But I think maybe the broader point is, and I think we mentioned this before, the way they lose games is the same. Poor clock management, suspect special teams, defensive gaffes, and poor running. And like especially in the second half, you saw the poor running. And so I agree with you 100%. I think the hard thing with the Cooper comparison, and someone put it in the chat, like I think the lows for Cooper were much lower, and the highs, I think you can make a legitimate argument. They in a 14 playoff, I think Ohio State wins in 96 and in 98.
Yeah.
Like I think both those teams were supremely talented, and freaking tie streets. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it fell off a cliff at the end of the Cooper era. But the other thing that people need to realize, because once again, you look back on it, but like Cooper didn't take over a program like Ryan Day did. I mean,
that's
Cooper
a really good
took
point.
over a program that was, and at that point, I mean, Ohio State's been Ohio State since the 1950s or whenever. But like the reality is that there was always ups and downs. Prior to the past 25 years, Ohio State wasn't consistently elite. So like in the late 80s, Ohio State was in a downturn, you know what I mean? So Cooper had to rebound, and he actually did a really good job of that. By 1995, they were back into, national contention. And then, like I said, obviously at the end there, it fell off. So, but I don't know. It's not like a apples to apples comparison. So I'm not trying to paint it as that. I just think it's one of those things where people, John Cooper is kind of like that name that is so infamous in Columbus. But I mean, the reality is that I don't want this, and I'm going to continue to support Ryan Day as long as he's the head coach, because I'm not like naturally a pessimistic person and stuff like that, but there comes a limit. So I don't know what that point is, and I'm just saying that if this doesn't like get corrected and we don't see like returns on these investments at a certain point, whether everything crumbles to the ground and you have to completely clean house, and you might not end up with grass being greener or not, like you've got to reseed, if that's the analogy. You know what I mean? Yeah. If there's no grass at all and you've got to reseed, then like that's what you have to do at a certain point. Because you're not compared. People say, oh, Ryan Day's a really, really good coach. And he is. He's a really good coach. But the reality is he's not being compared to the standard of somebody who's coaching at Illinois or Wisconsin or even Penn State. He's being compared to Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer, and he's being compared to what the legacy of Ohio State is. And he has more he has more at his disposal right now than anybody ever did. It's just the truth of the matter.
That's a really good point.
There's gonna come a point, and I'm not saying it will be after this season. I don't know, and hopefully they rebound and they win the national title this year. But at a certain point, like, where does it stop? That's my question. So, but I don't know. But I'll let you take another call. But one thing that's interesting, going back a little bit in the conversation, you were saying about Larry Johnson maybe not wanting to rotate on the defensive line. If you remember, he used to rotate tons. And about 4 or 5 years back, people were complaining that he was rotating too much. It's a very odd thing.
Yeah, it is really odd. I've heard multiple people say when I have brought that up, like, no, Larry Johnson does rotate, and it's like, well, he used to. And honestly, he does in games against like Marshall and Indiana State or whatever, lower level team that they play. But when it comes into the big games, I mean, like I got the stats right here in front of me. Jack Sawyer played 59 snaps against Oregon. JT played 55. Tyleik Williams played 52. Ty Hamilton played 50. The next closest after Ty Hamilton at 50 is Kenyatta Jackson with 17. Like, that is a huge drop off from your top 4 guys to your 5th guy there, and it's just it's wild to me.
And Oregon was going with tempo, and they were gassed by the end of the game. And if you notice at the beginning of the game, they were stuffing the run. Like, Oregon wasn't really doing much, and by the end of the game, they were borderline gashing the defense. Just, those guys were getting winded, and they weren't able to get to the hole as quick and stuff it. So, but I don't know. Maybe it's that they simply don't trust the backups. I don't know. I mean, every time I see Caden Curry in there, he seems to look pretty good, but maybe he's just not consistent and he likes to freelance too much and they don't like that. I don't know. But at any rate, I'll let you guys take another call. But it's good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Hummus.
See ya.
See ya. All right. We got one more left. We got Doug Shepard on the line. Doug, how we doing?
Hey, Doug.
Doing all right. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing well.
Let me mute the TV here. There we go. I just wanted to call in. I didn't catch the first part of the show, so I don't know if it's been addressed or not. But people need to chill out, man, and just look at this game and take a wider view. You lost by 1 on the road to the number 3 team in the country. You had a chance to win. Yeah, you messed it up, but it's not like they're terrible. And it's early in the season, and there's a lot of football to be played yet. And
I completely agree.
Every time someone disagrees with something Rondé does, it's fire him. They're all bums. But I've lived long enough. I'm older than Hummus Hero. I remember the Earl Bruce years, and even Woody. I went and watched games in the shoe when I was a teenager. It ain't always better, It's just, and Ohio State has a history of the fans just wanting to fire everybody as soon as they lose a game.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at it as the fans care, and I appreciate that they care because I think that's one of the things that makes Ohio State great is that they don't want to settle for, we're 3rd best in the Big Ten or 2nd best or whatever. Like, I think that's one of the things that makes Ohio State great is how much the fans care, but it does get to a point where, people are saying, oh, Ryan Day, he's a terrible coach. And it's like, well, not really. Like, yes, he doesn't win the big games a lot of the times, but he's also 44-0 against unranked teams. Like, how mad do you think people would be if Ohio State lost to Vandy? Like,
right. Well, I remember Bobby Bowden had that problem early in his career, and the coach out of Nebraska, his name is escaping me right now. Osborne. Osborne couldn't win the big games forever until he did, And you just keep chopping away at it, they're going to get it.
Yeah, I totally agree. What do you think, Zach?
The thing I don't get is I don't get how people take it so personally when they lose. I mean, I love the Buckeyes, man. Absolutely. But whether they win by 100 or lose by 100, the next morning when I get up, ain't nothing changed in my life. Sports are supposed to be entertainment, but people are just over the top, man. I guarantee if we go to a game together, I will cheer more than they will. They might applaud, if a touchdown or an interception or something, a great play, but they're not no way they're gonna stand and cheer and embarrass themselves.
Mhm.
But yet they'll go home, get on a computer, and want to fire everybody in the whole state. They're all bums. Get rid of them.
Say no.
Good
You're the
luck
bum
getting
for
somebody
wanting
to
to
take
get
the
rid of
reins of a
somebody.
program that keeps firing a coach every time the fan base gets upset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an adjustment for people too, because I mean, whether people like it or not, college football is changing.
Oh, Lord.
And it's getting to the point now where, yes, nobody wants to lose a game, but this isn't the BCS era anymore, right? Where you cannot afford to lose a game, and even if you don't lose a game, you can still possibly not make the championship game and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
Ohio State loses 2 games, they're probably still in the playoffs, unless those 2 games are to some bad opponents. Like, they're probably still in the playoffs, and you're still playing for a chance to win. Now, is that very good bragging rights? No, but what's it about? You having bragging rights, or you having a chance to win the national championship? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like I said, I just wanted to add a little levity to it. I mean, people are just freaking out. Good God.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to give up your firstborn because they got, they lost by a point the other night.
Yeah.
Very true.
It's interesting. I appreciate your perspective, Doug, because I think part of it too now is there's so many narratives, and one of them is like, Ohio State is soft. And I think that if your identity is so rooted in something, you just become like, that becomes part of your identity now. It's like, I'm part of a soft team. We can't be a soft team. And I think, it's like Desmond Howard being
A
an
clown.
idiot. Yeah, being an idiot on College Game Day. But it's like, if you just recognize for what it is, that it's a television show in a lot of ways. And yes, it's real things. It's real results. But like, at the end of the day, I think the way you talk about it, Doug, is really good. It's entertainment. And so, it's good to be a fan, and it's okay to have reactions, but also I think you have a good perspective that, yeah, like, this is supposed to be a fun thing. And like, if ESPN wants to call us soft, well, what do they know?
Yeah, they're
Like,
going
who
bankrupt
cares?
anyway. They don't know nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking my call. That's all. I just wanted to add, point of view of someone that just don't think the sky is falling.
Yeah,
Unless you want to talk about climate change or something like that, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah,
Thanks
we're
for
gonna
taking my
leave
call,
climate
guys.
change off the Ohio State call-in show, but we'll talk Ryan Day all anybody wants. So.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
You too, Doug.
Take care, Doug.
Yep.
All right. Great call there. Had a few awesome calls tonight. Well, not a few. I'd say everybody had some awesome calls. We had a nice wrestling promo that happened. That was good to have for us as well. I think there was a bit of an Uncle Lou impersonator as well with the 5-star dummy or whatever. But
Yeah.
Good stuff there, Zach. I think put in an honest day's work for our first call-in show tonight. We appreciate everybody in the chat being here. You have any closing thoughts or anything you want to tell people about before we get out of here, Zach?
I just say I think we should open our next show with the Stone Cold glass shattering to start our show. I just think that would be appropriate. Maybe that might be a copyright problem, though. I don't know if we can actually do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, maybe if we play it backward, it won't be.
Let's not do that. Don't do that. Don't. This is why, JR, you are like the inventor, and like, you come up with all the graphics, all the music, and I just show up.
You're the on-air talent, Zach.
No, I don't know if I would. I think I'm the foil. That's what I am. Say, what do you think? I don't know. I think it's great. Cool. All right, we're good. I still want the Duck and Brutus to fight.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
You need to get an inflatable Brutus head and have him float next to the inflatable duck.
Let them fight. Let them fight.
Have them go at it. Have them go at it. All right. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Like Jackson said at the end of his call, we'll be back here again 9:00 Monday night. Zach and I. If it's not me and Zach, it'll just be me. Or if it's not me and Zach, it might just be Zach or something like that. But we're gonna do our very best to try and be here every single Monday night for you guys. This will be kind of a nice little recap, get your thoughts and stuff out there, maybe a little bit more measured after things happen, or who knows, Ohio State could go undefeated from here on out, and we're all saying national championship again, so we'll see.
Let's do it.
But we appreciate everybody watching and everybody calling in. We'll be back again Monday night because there's not a game this weekend, so there won't be any post game with Mike. We'll be back here Monday night at 9:00. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.